Lesson 6, Unit 3. Continuous improvement. Continuous improvement is at the core of results-based project management. Changes in the context, changes in assumptions, and opportunities for improvements require a flexible approach to adapt the project to this changing environment. This is part of the core principles that require the Rbpm process to be flexible and iterative. Adapting is a continuous process, but it's not a reactive process. The project can take a proactive approach to modifying the project based on the information it collects and identify the trends and begin the process to adapt the project before the changes take full effect. Continuous improvements have the benefit of making small incremental changes rather than the big change that requires more effort. Continuous and incremental improvements is not only about adapting to changes in the external environment. Even if there are no changes in the environment, the practice helps improve the project operations by streamlining the workflow and reduce wasted time and effort. There are always opportunities to improve the performance of the project, even if the project is on target and meeting its performance goals. The project manager should always seek for opportunities to make incremental improvements in the day-to-day project work. For example, a review of the project approach to see if there are unnecessary steps in the process, ensure that there are no overlapping responsibilities for the task, and a review of the time to complete a repetitive task. For continuous improvements to be effective, there are 6 basic principles to take into account. Improvements are best when based in small changes rather than big changes. The best ideas for improvements come from those who do the work, team members, beneficiaries, and key stakeholders. Incremental improvements are less expensive and require less effort. People that contribute ideas for improvements feel more invested in the project. Constant feedback is an important factor for improvements to be effective. Finally, all changes made to improve the project must be measured to see if its effectiveness and replication. These principles can guide the project manager to implement an effective process of a continuous improvement. Continuous improvement consists of a cycle of 4 steps. The first step is identification of the opportunities for improvements. The second step is the development of the solution and a plan to make the improvements. The third step is the execution of the changes in the project work, but on a limited scale. The last step is the review of the results of the changes. If they are positive, then the project can apply the changes on a wider scale. The continuous improvement cycle is iterative and continues during the life of the project. Continuous improvement is about understanding where you are today, developing a plan, taking decision actions, and then measuring the results of those actions, and then doing it over and over again. The cycle starts with identification of an area of improvement. Information from the monitoring data, and if available, the formative evaluations provide insight on the areas the project can improve its performance or change to respond to changes in the project context. For example, the project noticed that beneficiaries were not having a good response to the outreach campaign to participate in water and sanitation workshops. They identified that they need to change their outreach approach. Plan the change. This includes the development of metrics to measure the change when it's implemented. Planning takes in consideration the time and cost it will take to implement the plan. Ideally, these costs are less than the benefits the project will gain with the change. For example, the project team developed a solution and a plan to make the change on a smaller scale. They also devised some key metrics to measure the result. The next step is to implement the improvement on a small scale. The idea of a small scale is to have a better control of the change and be able to measure its results. For example, the project team incorporated a change in one community to see if the changes in their outreach approach will result in a better response. The review step is where we analyze what happened and why it happened with our actions. By using the metrics developed, the project team can determine if the changes actually resulted in improvements or not. If the change was positive, then the project manager can authorize the change on a wider scale. For example, the project found that the response on the one community was much higher after the change. Based with the data, they were able to apply the new outreach approach to all the other project communities. Adapting includes the changes on the various project plans and processes the project uses to deliver results. In the adapting phase, the most common areas to make changes include the project management plans that help manage the project constraints of scope, schedule, cost, and quality. Project processes for implementing and delivering the expected results. The project log frame and even the performance measurement framework. These plans include the plans to manage implementation of the project activities and the monitoring plan. Each plan has a baseline and a set of targets the project needs to achieve. By definition, plans are predictions the project expects to happen, but projects don't always go as planned. Delays, cost overruns, changes in assumptions, new risks, and changes in the context require that the project plans be modified to keep the target in sight. For example, a project identified that due to changes in their outreach approach, they needed to modify the project schedule and add more time. This change also required a small revision of the project budget. Project processes refer to the work the project does to deliver its results. An example is the process to collect, analyze, and report monitoring data. The project has many processes, and depending on the level of expertise and experience, these processes will vary in their efficiencies. For example, the project manager identified that the analysis step was taking too much time. He discovered that the delays were caused by the duplication of efforts in the process. The project manager changed the process and reassigned roles and responsibility. With these changes, the analysis step started to take less time than before. Changes to the logical framework respond to changes in the project environment. It is normal that at the moment of the design of the project, there were certain assumptions made. During the implementation phase, some of those assumptions can change, and it's important for the project manager to identify the consequences of that change and make the necessary corrections. For example, one key assumption at the output level was the participation of beneficiaries in the water and sanitation workshops. That assumption proved not to be correct during implementation. Caused by a lack of interest in project beneficiaries, the project manager had to make changes in the project outreach campaign to increase the interest of participants. The performance framework that defines the targets the project needs to meet is also prone to changes in the external environment. Like all plans, the performance framework is based on estimates, and they are never 100% correct. For example, the project manager might have decided to set a milestone target to meet 50% of outputs before the midterm evaluation of the project. Due to the changes in assumptions that occur in the project manager needs to revisit those milestones and propose changes that will improve confidence that the project will be able to meet its final target. Continuous improvements is not a sole responsibility of the project manager. It is a responsibility of the entire project team, including partners and key stakeholders. They all are responsible for identifying inefficiencies and suggest improvements. Everybody who has a stake in the project has the responsibility to seek improvements that will help deliver better results. When people are focused on continuous improvements, they help develop a culture of innovation that produces efficiencies in the achievement of project results.